Well, hey guys, yeah. So I'm a huge fan of horror, and yeah, this film is no exception. I'm really kind of curious about the title. You know, it seems to resonate on multiple levels: social, family, supernatural. Is How did you arrive at that title, and then ultimately, what does it mean to you? Because it seems so like minimal, but at the same time, there's so much to it in all reality.
Well, good. We've this is actually the third title we've had. So it's been sort of a process of like, oh my God, we got to come up with a new title. Um, yeah, we were originally Cuckoo, and then a film called Cuckoo was announced, and we're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to pivot. We went to Psychopomp for a while, and then foreign distribution was like, that doesn't translate into anything we've got. So we literally had like 4 days to like you come up. We went through hundreds and hundreds of titles to try to find something, and the other is minimal, and sometimes that chews at me a little bit. But it works. It really does work, and I've started to embrace it, especially with the key art and all that. But yeah, it's I mean, like you said, it resonates on a number of different levels. It's you know, um, a little girl who, is African American with, white parents and, her otherness, her feeling otherness in that environment. And then of course the Down syndrome friend, Um, and I think that the two protagonists, sort of the two young children who are um sort of cognizant of everything that's going on or the threat of it while no one else is was important to me in the story, that they either don't have voices or are dismissible and therefore sort of othered in the adult world. Yeah, that, I mean, it resonated there too for me. But anyway,
Awesome. Yeah.
but yes, it wasn't our first choice,
Well,
but it works.
it's
But
neat sorry, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I was going to say, but a lot of times through all the back and forth, you end up with like the right choice. And I think that,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that this title does really land on like what you
yeah.
pointed out, Jesse. It resonates on so many different levels for all of its simplicity. It's like it's yeah, it really resonates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it checks all the boxes, and I couldn't agree more. I'm also kind of curious, how did you guys come together? You know, the creator of Final Destination, the director of Hellbent. How did that all come about, and what was it about this story that made you guys kind of work together?
Well,
Well, we've been like,
go ahead.
sorry.
We're going to say
We've
the same
been we've been
thing.
yeah, we've been, besties for over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I mean, we have worked together on some projects, smaller projects before. But we were like sit next to each other in Starbucks when we're working on scripts and all of that. So it's just that, the friendship naturally led to, oh, hey, Jeffrey's got, financiers, let's do a movie. And for me, the other script didn't exist yet, but I knew the parameters of the budget they were giving me, and I'm like, okay, I need to treat this like a Blumhouse, where it's essentially a single location, and not a ton of effects, but still, it delivers. So I wrote for that budget range,
Yeah.
and
And for me, like I was a fan of Paul's because of Hellbent, his first film, before we met. But we did accidentally just we were started chatting at it, and I was like, oh my God, you did Hellbent. Um, so um, so we both have the same sense of humor. We're both filmmakers who work in a genre that doesn't get a ton of respect. And when Paul wrote this script. Um, it really, because, we did have financing originally lined up, but we ended up with some great financiers who actually came through. But, Paul's a really, really good writer and a really good director. And he just wrote this really rich story for me that dealt with a lot of stuff that I think people can relate to, trying to be, people who can't have kids but are trying to, find a child in a system where it's not easy and um, trying to be a good parent when you feel ill-equipped. I don't know any
yeah,
parents that feel like they're equipped and great parents, except for maybe the wrong parents. Um, and just just the fun, the you care so much for the characters, and it's such a fun ride. Um, because we've also got the same kind of twisted sense of humor. That even though there's not like haha like Evil Dead, slapstick stuff, or one-liners in here, there's a kind of dark, awkward humor that comes from these character situations
Mm.
that made me just I was like, this is like a really special story. And I think, you get some great talent attached to work in it. And I knew Paul could direct the hell out of it. So it was just a no-brainer once, I read the script. So
What does it feel like, Paul, hearing Jeffrey talk about you like that? Is that like, are you just used to it now, or does it does it feel really good?
Of course, it feels good. I'm not a very good salesperson for myself, so to like, okay, well, I'm glad that's how I come across because like the struggling parent. That's how I feel when I'm creating. It's just like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's like I hope this works.
Well,
But to
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
no. But it's definitely gratifying to hear my friend Jeffrey Reddick say it.
he
So
doesn't
that's
believe
good.
me when I say it. So then somebody else will read the stuff and they'll be like, this is great. And he's like, oh, maybe Jeffrey's your. No, he's not like that. But, when it's friends,
A little bit.
you think when it's friends, they're just blowing smoke up your ass.
That's
But,
Yeah.
no.
Well, though I also kind of want to touch on what Jeffrey said. This film grapples with some pretty significant themes: infertility, motherhood.
hmm
Those things are not. I mean, they're represented within horror, but I think Jeffrey said it's kind of an underappreciated genre, and it's kind of neat to see those being performed within the horror framework. How did you guys balance the social commentary with the visceral thrills? Because I thought that was one of my favorite things, is that balance was so teetered in a way that was should be studied, if you
Oh,
will.
nice. Oh, well, thank you. Well, first and foremost, I wrote this to be fun. I didn't set out to, make it, some sort of social commentary at all, because I think that, um, but once I got the framework of, okay, here's my story, here's my fun. Now, how do I weave in, these other interesting topics, and touch on them? And I have always said that I write for the second viewing. So the first viewing is like, oh, that's, gonzo fun. And then when you go back and see it again, it's like, oh, I see actually what's really being talked about. And then there's layers under that. Um, so I think that a lot of it is, has to be go to the actors for credit for them not hammering anything too hard and just being real people, real characters. And also, Jeffrey was there to help guide for, to make sure we weren't, being too obnoxious with our commentaries. Yes.
Um, and I think, again, I didn't ever have to come in and say, I think you're being too obnoxious here or too on, because also just as creators, like your world, the life experience that you have filters in through your work. So,
hmm
Paul's got two biracial nieces, so he knows of the struggles that they have. And obviously, I know the struggles of being a person of color and being gay. And so that doesn't mean that everything we write is going to be about that, but every story that we tell is through the prism of our life experiences. So a lot of that stuff subconsciously comes up. Like
Yeah.
I would talk to Paul and I'd be like, "Oh, this is really cool that you did this." And he was like, "Oh, I did, but it wasn't the top of my brain thinking, that was like subconscious." And I think that that's why it works is I think it's when if you're trying too hard to make a social commentary movie, then the message becomes the movie, and it's not about
Yeah.
like this story, which is about a family to under siege. We're not sure why and how and what, and you've got these really interesting parents trying to raise these kids, and you've got these really two interesting young leads.
hmm
Paul wanted to make it interesting on himself by working with children, but you have these two interesting leads, who kind of are understand what's going on, but because one has no voice and the other is a special needs child, like these are kids that are often overlooked or not listened to. They're
Hmm.
up, in other words, and they're the grounding force that are telling the story. And so Paul wrote that stuff beautifully in the story, and so I think that the balancing was natural because it wasn't forced.
Yeah,
Much better answer.
I really like how you said that, honestly. And I guess
Hmm.
from my perspective, I'm a straight white male, and so hearing you say that about how it loses the message if you go out to kind of like set out with the social commentary.
Hmm.
I love that, and I love hearing that because these are lenses that I'm not familiar with, and um those stories packed a bigger punch when directors come at it like or writers come at it that way as well. So from a viewer's perspective, I love to hear that. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh.
And that kind of leads into my next question, honestly, in our final question. Ultimately, what do you hope audiences walk away thinking or feeling with this film? Because there is, there is a punch that with whether you want to or not, this is going to stay with you. And I just kind of wanted to hear it from, for lack of better terms, the horse's mouth. What do you guys want people to feel with this film?
Horse? No, I'm
Horse
pointing to
of me.
Paul. Oh, yeah.
um, what do I want them to feel? I find when I was writing it, and I wrote it really fast, so I didn't have time to critique everything and every choice I was making. It really was just like, my all of my pleasures in my soul just being spit out. It wasn't my, technical brain. Um, I find it exhilarating and fun, and uh, just kind of, you know, a wacko delight that we don't get a lot of right now. I mean, a lot of horror is, for better or worse, it's a little crushing, it's a little soul crushing. Um, so I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for a good, fun ride, and I'm hopeful that it sparks conversations of a variety of things, a variety of topics, about found families and the kind of commitment that parents have to make to a child, um, and yeah, all kinds of things. Honestly, but it's a little early to think about it this morning.
No, no, and
uh,
I, yeah, I want them to think of all the stuff that Paul just said, but also just leave, no, but to leave the movie like thinking, but having had a good ride, like this is,
yeah.
for us, like their horror movies are fun and can make you think, and again, you get a great cast. Like, I really think everyone in our cast, from the smallest roles to the biggest roles, like knocked it out of the park. And so it's also like see it, but also go out and support indie film. Like we need more of that because, unless you go out and support indie film, and I'm not, this is all indie film, including ours, but support indie film, and especially films that you think are good and strong, because that will only help other films get made. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly why I'm here. You guys are known for good quality films, and here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing, and you guys are doing just fine. Again, thank you so much
Great.
for your time, and
Thank you,
congratulations
Jesse.
on
thank you
the
so much.
other and future films as well.
Thanks
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Really appreciate the time.
Of course.
Thanks, Jesse.